Micaela, cambiamo che meno. Sweet again.
Hey, good morning. We'll be starting at 8:04 or 5, yeah, to allow some more people to join in. Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, thanks so much for able to join. Camille from Microsoft actually has a topic today. Camille, if you could please share your screen and talk about your PR.
Yeah, sure. Let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah, okay. So the topic is to address, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago, meeting I think on Dash meeting that we want to move extensions to some fixed range. And this is my proposal to move the extensions to this 0x2 fixed range. The reason is that previously we have, let's say, the SCI APIs extension range start at SCI API max, and each extension like port attribute, port statistics, all those extensions, also mainly the object type extension range. They were just starting as a continuous number from the last either max or attribute end or stat end. and that's same for all the objects. And the problem is that, for example, if we let's use the object type. If we add new object type to the regular list, which is here. Yeah. So for example, last we added this power over Ethernet stuff. So then the extensions range will start from the object type max, and that will always shift the enum value for the extension for if we add a new object type here. And that is so far that was not a problem because we treated extensions as something which is experimental and maybe temporary. There was a lot of shifts, adding and removing enums and entire APIs in that extension directory. Actually, it's an experimental directory. And that was not an issue, but recently some of the vendors brought up the topic that this is not good because we want to keep like the enum values backward compatibility in the extensions. So, if we add, for example, another object type or another, let's say, size switch attribute, then the values for the extension values will remain constant. So I proposed a solution to make a starting range like from this number 0x2 for each of the either attributes or object type or statistics. And this actually solves the issues. So benefit for that is we can use, for example, wormwood scenario for the experimental headers and for the dash headers. I'm not sure if that's already supported anywhere, but I think it's nice to have. So, for example, if we add, if we upgrade from one side headers to another one, and in the middle we added some new object types and some new attributes, then on the vendor side, the vendor doesn't need to make a conversion from the old experimental header enum value to a new value, which would be actually really really difficult to do. Depends on the version. Everybody would need to actually keep track of what was, for example, the dash attribute value in this specific version and what is in the current one, and translating that it would lead to like a nightmare to do on run. And making those enum values constant, then you don't have to worry about, because we have like from this point we would have like binary backward compatibility with those attributes and enum values. And another argument for that is not specifically to a wormwood, but one scenario I was given was to that if we have, for example, one version of side library running in the current, let's say, Sonic version, then we can add, for example, something like a debugging Docker container or something like that, which will have actually like the newer version of the headers, and still the values will be preserved. So we can have like a debug capability, which for example have a newer headers, but it can still debug the old library because the values of the enums are backwards compatible. And there is one issue with this change. So the problem with which we are facing, the price we actually pay for that change is that, for example, something which is really handy is object types. So where is that? Yeah, so for example, the extensions object types will begin also from this extension base, which is this 0x to 00 value. And the problem is that currently it is like, because object types, we have like 110 of them right now and 20 of them in the extensions. So that is in the, that is able to be encoded on a single byte. And that is like really handy to, encode that object type in the object identifier for each object, because then when you are given the OID to the NSI API, then you can, just do depends on the vendor, you can do just a single let's say, and operation for a single byte, and you can extract that that object type, and you already know which object you are referring to. And we are also doing that in Sonic as well, for the virtual object IDs, to make, to do a validation when we call it, where we call each API, whether the object type is of the given object is the one that we are expecting. And this already saved us a lot of unexpected bugs and issues with, passing accidentally wrong object to a different API. The price to pay for that is that we will be not able to, longer to encode this as a single byte, because those extensions will be above 1 byte. So that the range will actually start from 4 bytes. But currently, I proposed also a solution for that, which I already implemented in the in Sonic. I'm not sure if I have a description here for that. Let me check here. Yeah, so I provided also here a description how to encode that, because all the proposed shift changes are from this base, this 0x2. So I propose to, and I already implemented that in the Sonic, that if the object type is below object type max, then we will just use that 8 bits to encode that, let's say, that regular object type. But if the object type is extension type, then we also use the object type for the 8 bits, but we will also require like extra bit, like 9 bits to mark this as a extension. This also could be, because so far we have less than 127 object types in current headers. So actually those extensions and regular object types could be encoded on a single byte, as was so far. But the problem is that then we will have only 7 bits for encoding object type and 1 bit to mark it as an extension. And that could be like a problem to a near future, because we will reach the 128 object types probably like in the next year or two years, something like that, because currently we have like 110 of them. So I think it makes more sense to make it 8 bits for encoding like entire object types, and 9 bits for just marking is whether it's an extension or not. Of course, this is up to each vendor to to implement this internally as they want to. This is just my proposal. This is how we implemented that in Sonic right now. And if we did this in this way, then we have like another 100, almost 140 empty slots for a future object types for the regular object types, and over 230 slots for extension object types. And I think that that kind of number of object types, it will probably take several years to to populate. So then after that, I think then we can try to mitigate this problem as it will arise in the future. I also thought about the other solution for that. So other solution to, if we don't have any space to encode object type in a object identifier, then other solution is to just keep track of to have a map like that will map object ID to an object type, and then internally each vendor would need to keep track of that on its own. So I think it's a much better solution to have it encode in a single OID and not having to keep track of that. I think it's more handy, but again, it's up to each vendor how they want to actually implement that. Yeah, and that's it. That's the change. So does anyone have any questions?
Kamil, can you explain? This is Ravi from Marvel. Can you just explain line number 395? Where is this extension bit set to 1? The basic question here is, Kamil, how do I know whether a given object type is an extension object or a regular SI object? How do I find that? That's based on this extension bit.
I mean, that's a proposed solution. So it will be it will be up to each vendor how they want to implement that. I can actually show you how we implemented that, how I actually implemented that in Sonic. So it's not checked in yet because it's actually waiting for that SI PR.
Okay.
So for example, here, you have current object ID format that we have, and previously we have object types on the bits 55 to 48, and that is one single byte. And as you can see, there is a change already. So we borrowed 1 bit as an extension flag here. So this object index is just increasing number for each object. So for each new created object, you just increase that. So this is like just a counter. So we borrow a single bit from that, and then later on, if we, for example, let me find that code. Yeah, here. So for example, when we decode the actual object type for the internal use, we get that flag,
Yes,
extension flag, and if it's set to 1, we get the object type and we add the extension range start. So that will be this 0x2000 number. And if it's not set to true, then we just get a regular object type. And this object type here will be just an actual that corresponds to the each specific enum value. Yeah. And that's when we decode to the actual object type. And when we encode, we checked here whether the object type is starting from the extension range. And if it's starting from the extension range, we just encode object type by subtracting that range start. So this will still fit in the 1 byte. And if it's not starting from the extension range, we just get regular object type. So this value here will be always it will always fit in a single byte. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I got it, Kamal. So now the question is, right, this in your example, I think you're using bit number 38 or 39 for
Yeah.
this extension, right?
Yeah.
So this could be a problem with warm upgrade, right? Kamal, if you're changing the way we're encoding object types across versions, then the warm upgrade might not work as expected. Right? It could so happen that bit 39, if I have a lot of objects created.
But this is, just to specify, yeah, this is how we encode this. This is the virtual object manager in Sonic, yeah. So this is just for our purposes, and actually, you are right that this could cause a problem. But right now, at least in Sonic, we don't use warm boot in with dash objects. So this is actually not it will not cause for us any problems. Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, I actually forgot to do this. Actually, we can change still the format because I reserved previously this 40 bits for object index, but actually it could be like 32 bits, let's say, and 4 bits could be like reserved for the future use. Yeah, you can actually see that there is no reserved bits here, so I actually needed to borrow this bit. But it's not actually hurting us at this moment. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And for each vendor, it's up to the vendor. How you want to implement. Yeah. This is the approach that I took. That it will work for us in Sonic. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think it's. But the best case is what you said. Maybe when you're doing this, we should reserve a set of bits for future use cases as well, so that we don't keep changing. We should maybe reserve a set of bits from object index or somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a solution. I can actually make those changes to make, let's say, those top 7 bits of that object index to be reserved. But as I'm saying, if you are
Vendors,
in Marvel, you have your own SI implementation object ID encoding, so it's up to you how you encode that. You don't need to go to this route. Yeah, I'm just showing one of the example you can take. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When we are supporting extensions, it's internal to us, right? How we do, I was just curious about how it's being done for Sonic. That's what I was.
Yeah. We also, we can actually use take a look here also that we have asserts to make sure that we have object type less than 256 and also extension is also less for 256. Yeah, so this will not even compile when those values will be greater. Yeah. But I think that will be like several years in the future until we reach that point. Yeah. Then we actually we can make the change to make a couple extra bits that will be like reserved bits, and then let's say if we reach that if we will be over 256 over 256 values for the object type, then we can use, let's say, reserved bit and use that reserved bit to actually go to the special mapping, because then we will like run out of bits to encode that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Kamil, one more question I had with the actual changes you have done. The changes you
Yeah.
have done, Kamil, is only for port and switch objects. Why not for the others? Yeah, here we are. I think you have done for port and switch, but similarly we could have for every other objects. What's the plan for other objects?
So those are changed for the port and switch because those are the only one that have extensions right now. But the rule is for all of them. Yeah. So for example, if you want a new extension for an existing object, let's say for the virtual router, then you also need to go to like define like virtual router extension base with the same value, and then you can extend that those attributes in the extension.
Okay. Okay.
It's the same pattern for
Same
all the
pattern, yeah.
attributes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do it when we need it. That's the plan, right? The philosophy is
Yes.
we'll do it when we need it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And Kamil, last question I had wrote just to make sure the namings is consistent. So the idea is somebody will use custom range if they want to just add attributes within the same header file, and they'll use the extension range base if the attributes are going to be added in a separate extensions file. So that's the
Yes.
convention you have to follow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Kamil. Yeah. I think this looks good to me, I think.
Yeah. Does anyone have other questions? Mike, you wanted to say something?
No, I was going to jump in, and I have a pull request that was going to be reviewed next week, but since there's a time here, I was going to jump in. I was just unmuting myself to jump in before someone closed the meeting on me.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Yeah, I think we can discuss. If nobody else has any other question, I think we can go ahead with your PR.
So
yeah,
if
if we're done with
anyone,
email, then I have to just wait for him to stop sharing, it looks like.
so if there are no more questions about this PR, then I will stop sharing.
So just for my take on this pull request as well, I do agree with moving these at least fundamentally away from the using the end value +1 for the extensions, because that has caused us some pain internally in the past.
Sorry, can you speak up a little bit?
No, I was just agreeing with the fundamental approach or the fundamental idea behind this pull request that you have, that using the end of the range for the extensions has caused us some pain. So
yeah.
I do agree with putting a gap in there, so for enum stability and for compatibility reasons.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I think if anyone else and maybe from other vendors will have some comments, then please put that in the PR comments, and if that will be accepted, then I think we can merge that in the next week. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kamil.
All right, can you folks see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a very small pull request. So a while back, we added a switch attribute, or sorry, a port attribute to get the JSON encoded port debug data. one of the pieces of feedback we got from our SWSS folks was that we really ought to have a method of getting the max size of this, as opposed to, allocating a static buffer for it. So this is a pull request to add a switch attribute to get the maximum port debug data size, basically, so that the org agent in the Sonic world could perhaps request this size and then use that to know, as a hint, basically, to know how large a buffer to allocate, so that we don't get the buffer overflow error, basically, due to allocating a buffer that's too small. That is the entire extent of this pull request.
Mike, maybe just think out loud. This attribute is a port attribute. Why not make it a port attribute? You think this size is going to be fixed across all ports? Is that the reason, or?
That was my assumption, right? Was that this is mostly going to be a platform thing, like how much data, because this is kind of opaque to the upper layers, right? What the contents are, that this would be mostly a platform thing, and it didn't really make sense for this to be a per port thing. At least the way that we would plan on using it, we would return, even if you made it a per port thing, we would probably just return the same value for all ports. So it makes a little bit more sense for it to be a switch level thing. But if folks think that it really belongs as a port level thing, then we can move it there.
Why I would think is right, depending on implementation, I'm just trying to look at the example of what you had given earlier. So sometimes the additional debug data, see, one option is, the vendor platform can always give the largest size it will use, and we can use a switch header. But the more optimal way would be based on the current port, right? The debug data for each port might be of different type, based on the service lanes, how many lanes of service it has and stuff, right? So it could be different across ports. So this is just an optimization. I don't need to create a very large buffer, pass a large buffer, unless it's really needed.
Okay, I mean, I could be convinced on that. I can say that at least for the way that we intend to use it today, we're okay with it being just one size. But if we think that that's a better approach, the upshot of that would be that this is probably fine, but for every time that you want to get the port debug data, then you would have to query, or every time you created a port, I suppose, or every time you went to get the debug data, you would have to query for this attribute, potentially get a different size back, and then allocate your buffer according to that, which, again, that's workable.
The other way I was trying just to see, I'm just trying to think about SI return status, right? Today, if I pass a buffer which is of lesser size than what is really needed, SI returns a error code, right?
Buffer overflow error, yeah.
And is there a way it tells what should be the actual size required? I'm just trying to say, is it just a error, or does it also encode the number of length that is required?
It is just an error. In fact, we may not even know what the size is, depending on the implementation, the size needed is, depending on the implementation under the hood, right? It just knows that it ran out of space.
Yeah. At SI returned also the size, by how much it's ran out of space, right? That could have helped a little. If that's the case, that would be another option.
So
where I don't need to create new attributes.
That would work. That is not the philosophy that the current SI attributes use, where we get the we currently have for the switch, you can get the list of ports, right? So one of the things you do is you query for the size of the port list first, and then you query for the list of the ports.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so SI doesn't work on this. Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to see if we because we are going to bloat for every attribute we are going to create read-only. Any list attribute we are going to create, we'll have to first create a size attribute and then the list attribute itself. Yeah. For every read-only attribute, we have to create pairs. But I think you're right. The current way SI is using for get port list or get port queue list and all these things are like whatever you talked about. Yeah. Okay, Mike, it looks good to me. Yeah.
I guess my question then is, do we think that this more properly belongs as a support attribute? I have no problem with moving it if we think that that is the better way to do it. But if it's fine as a switch attribute, then like being lazy, this is what I've already done the 5 lines of code writing for, is what I would go with.
I'm just thinking the other way. What if we add both the switch and port attribute? So for when both are defined, we can say the port attributes takes precedence. If the port attribute is not defined, then we can take switch attribute takes precedence. So that way, for implementations where you have a common size, I think the switch attribute would suffice. What do you think, Ravi?
I think that will anyway create 2 workflows in the right, and because I think the only push concern Mike had with having a port attribute was every time before calling the port, reading it, they have to check all the port size attribute, find the size, create a buffer, and then read. Okay, so that was the concern about having a port attribute.
Yeah, so
now if we do this,
they'll have to
anyway,
do it
they'll have to do
individually
this.
for every
Yeah.
port.
Yeah.
If it's at switch level, it'll be a one-time activity, right?
Yeah, that's but if you take this approach, what you said, both switch and port, right? Then they have to do it twice. Anyway, that original problem still exists.
My only concern with having both is that it introduces complexity both in the documentation and in the workflow from the upper layers, from the NOS perspective, right? Sorry, excuse me.
Okay.
You know, just having that as, you know, well documented on what the expected behavior is from the NOS and what the expected behavior is from the SI adapter gets more complicated. It's not impossible. It's just a more complicated API at that point.
Okay. Agree.
Yeah. But Mike, I still think it's a better place to have it at the port level, because as I'm just thinking, if I'm a SI adapter, I'm implementing a SI adapter, and at boot time, when you ask me to send what's the max debug data size, right? I'll have to come up with some fictitious number, a large number, which I think is sufficient for all use cases.
Yeah, I think that that's calculable. I think so, and that is how I would have intended this to be used. Is like you kind of have to know in the end, like, you know, what the number of lanes, max number of lanes your system has anyway. You would have to be able to calculate that offhand. But if we think that this is a better served as a port attribute, again, I don't object to that.
I think that helps, right? Because based on the port, I would know exactly what details I need to specify. Okay, instead of doing the best case of all, looking at all the ports currently in the system, or all the ports I'd be supporting, right? This would be a better approach, I think, for if it's a per port attribute. Mike, maybe if it's possible, right? I think it's better, gives flexibility to, if it's a per port attribute rather than a switch attribute, right? Making it a per port attribute, and it follows with all the other philosophy we have, right? The attribute and the size both are in the same place.
Are there any other opinions on that? I don't object to that, to be clear. All right, then I will update this pull request to move this to the port attributes. I do expect that in the end, at least for our use, that it's going to be the exact same implementation under the hood, which is going to be return constant thing that is bigger than whatever the max size is going to be. So I don't think it really matters very much to me, but I can see the argument for that, and assuming there's no objections from other folks, that's fine by me. All right, I will move it, and I will update the pull request within probably about 20 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can also review it. I'll review it once it's updated.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else wanted to bring up anything?
Rajkumar, I think we have some PRs that's open for long, right? Rajkumar, do you want to remind?
Yes, Ravi, thanks. So Tejaswini, there is a PR 1941 related to counters, which is pending review for a while now. So need your help on this to get it reviewed.
Yeah, I think.
I just sent a
yes,
reminder this
we have-
morning as well.
Okay, yeah, I think earlier Jay and Sri Krishna had reviewed it, right? So we're waiting for.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else wants to jump in and review this? I will send one more follow-up email for them. I think I had sent earlier. I will try to send another email to get this closed.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then yeah, I think we can end the meeting slightly early. Thanks all for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.